when you have 1k
Why are
damage.
you so bad? Why are you not playing your own account? Go back to silver. Why are you playing the diamond?
Competitive play in Overwatch really is its own beast. Listen, there's a good reason I've forsaken that life in favor of, well, actually having fun. This game has a lot to offer when it comes to having a casual fun time, but for some reason, there are a lot of people out there always hunting for the competition. Now, I understand where that desire comes from, because I started off just like them. Not to go old boomer on you guys, but back in my day, I actually aspired to hitting the Grandmaster rank in competitive play. Granted, a Grandmaster had to meet completely different standards a few years back than they do now. Our community has actually gotten pretty good at the game over the years, and what we call a platinum player today would have probably been good enough to at least get masters back when everyone had to figure the game out in the first place. What I'm trying to say is that only because I hit 4K back then doesn't mean I can do it now. I mean, heck, I get comments almost every week about how my gameplay is subpar because I'm trying to goof around in quick play, which I don't know how to help these people. Anyway, a lot of you guys are probably wondering how good or not so good I can play when I actually get serious. And while that hasn't been my focus in the last little while, I have had a bit of a competitive itch recently. So believe it or not, but we are going to jump back into competitive play for the first time in 20 seasons. If there was ever a time to subscribe to the channel, it would be now. The last time I was really committed to ranked play was back in Season 4 with almost 200 games played. Rookie numbers, I know. And while I was still tryharding in Season 5, I didn't even play 60 games anymore while letting my SR decay to rock bottom. Do kids these days even still know about the decay mechanic? I had already given up by Season 6, where I just played a few games to get GM after my placements before once again letting it all decay. After that, all I did was messing around on alt accounts without the intention of actually taking it seriously. So as much as you may have seen a couple stories episodes where I played competitive, I haven't even completed my placements following these videos because I just couldn't be asked to do so. That means that today is going to mark a very special day because I'm committing to actually giving it my all, communicating with my teammates, and flexing where need be. We are going to take ranked seriously once more and find out if there's still some life left in these old bones, but before we can prove anything at all, we have to finish our placements. Well, the good thing is, this is literally unlosable, so...
No, you said it. You jinxed it now.
Placement matches were definitely interesting to me because I started off on a really bad foot. Between people not trying the hardest on their ult accounts and me not knowing how I can get my team to actually act like one, I ended up losing both of my first games. It was, however, difficult to be genuinely upset about these games because I knew that I wasn't firing on all cylinders myself. Where it would have been easy for me to cancel that challenge immediately after such a bad start, all it took was one team turning the tables. Yo, what's up?
Not much, dude. What about you?
Just losing every game, you know?
Hell yeah.
Yes, I had to do my fair share of flexing, but all that was unfortunately part of the challenge. Zenyatta, Ana, and Lucio always have been my most played heroes, but I didn't want to be the reason we lost the game when it was perfectly winnable. So I always have been flexing when the rest of my team wouldn't. To me, that is just part of the competitive integrity. Regardless of that, Zenyatta would remain my most played hero by a landslide, and I was actually warming up my gameplay quite significantly. Enough so that I ended up winning every single game after the first two. My placements would conclude with a sense of satisfaction because not only did my score turn around, but I also came across a lot of really fun individuals. Ultimately, with a 3-2 score, I would end up in 3200, which means that the real challenge had only just begun.
Can you please maybe swap Zenyatta?
As much as I'm willing to flex on my team, sometimes you just gotta hold your ground when you know for a fact that your hero pick isn't the problem, and instead it would have actually made the situation worse. He wasn't quite so polite the second time around, while completely ignoring the fact that me getting off my best hero isn't gonna stop our team from running their faces into a blender. We ultimately succeeded in pushing the card all the way to the end without me swapping, but on defense, I wouldn't get around playing something that can defend itself against dive. But at the end of the day, we secured the victory thanks to the power of team play, and I will be granted a hefty dose of SR for my troubles. I could feel the effect of the hidden MMR trying to push me towards a rank where I would be tested to the fullest degree, but in that moment, I was just having a blast. Flexing wasn't all bad either. Sure, I had to play Brigitte more often than I would have liked, but I also got to play Lucio and Ilios, which was really fun and challenging because my Lucio mechanics are lackluster to say the least. We even had what I can only assume to be a very intentional boostio situation, and I'm happy to report that I didn't completely choke. But as much fun as I was having, the game was showering me in so much SR that before I knew it, I was reaching my promotion game. I know that was a very long introduction, but our story today takes place on Dorado. With this being my promotion game, we are looking at the first ever episode where something tangible was on the line. my bragging rights. Granted, even if I win this game, all I have to show for myself is the Masters rank, but hey, if I can't even break into 3500, I might as well retire immediately. My habits of playing Dorado back in the day came back to me. Avoiding the spam coming from main while anticipating cheeky flanking plays set up on rooftops, I began the game very cautiously. My Reaper tried to push the enemy soldier off the high ground to allow us to move the payload safely, but found himself heavily under fire in an instant. It was then that the enemy tracer initiated her dive onto my soldier, who failed to combo her with a helix rocket. But of course I had to combat enough tracers on my time to read her simplistic movement and send her back to her spawn room. We had the man advantage now, prompting my Hammond to full send it into the enemy team in an attempt of creating space. Space that we could indeed make use of. The enemies completely fell apart. For a team to be so SR thirsty as to start the game off playing double barrier, they sure as heck collapsed like lawn chairs the moment they lost a player. My Zarya pushed towards the enemy spawn all on her own while we tried to secure the first point cap, and what I assumed to be a noble sacrifice at the time of playing was revealed to be a severe lapse in judgment when looking at the replay. However, all's well that ends well, because regardless of their intentions, it allowed us to secure the first point. As the gates opened, I spotted my soldier losing a 1v1 against the enemy soldier and figured that as soon as I had line of sight, I would finish what he couldn't. Unfortunately for me, they were running a mercy that, of course, invalidated my efforts. Being given another chance at life, the enemy soldier tried to visor in our backline, but found himself eliminated again after having been outplayed in every conceivable metric. The enemies would have done a lot better with a tactical retreat, but now they were on the stagger train as they desperately tried to save themselves from the onslaught of my team. I, in the meantime, was delegated to moving the payload. Knowing they'd have trouble closing the distance, their soldier made a swap to Widowmaker, and you know as well as me that even if they never land a shot, just that mere presence is going to affect our positioning from here on out. But there was a more immediate problem on my mind. Their tracer had just blown up my Zarya, and following that key pick, they made an attempt to have me follow her example. Thankfully, I could use my Hammond as a mobile barrier to calmly line up the one shot I needed to take her out. And as much as I wish that this was enough to capture the second point, we had been bleeding too much manpower throughout the poking phase, and when push came to shove, the defender's timely use of a number of ultimate abilities would prove to be our downfall. Losing momentum in diamond games is about the worst thing that can happen to you. Chances are your entire team was expecting this to be an easy game, but as soon as the enemies retaliate, the pointing of fingers begins.
Behind us.
Can you call behind? You call nothing.
Just one shot me.
Just call nothing here.
While our Zarya was blaming the rest of us, I sure as heck was not happy about the fact that she was playing more like a Zenyatta than I was. I mean, seriously, when I blow Transcendence was to run into the discorded enemy Ana, shouting down the microphone to go in, I expect my tanks to actually press W. Now, I'm not saying that he was the only one who made mistakes, but to be pointing fingers just in order to distract from your own incompetence is about as Overwatch of a move as I can imagine. Ultimately, we would end our attack round without capping the second point, and in addition to that, we had a lot of bad energy in our voice chat. 95 meters was the distance the enemy team had to beat, but the bigger challenge now was keeping our team together. It was now our turn to defend, and if I still wanted to win this game, I had to raise our spirits. Now, I'm not much of a motivational speaker, but one thing I can do is breaking the Geneva Convention. At the time of recording, Brigitte still had her plus 25 HP buff, and believe it or not, if you know how to make use of it, it can make a big difference even in Diamond. Barring a couple mistakes here and there, I was having a really good attack round on Zenyatta, but sometimes you doing well alone isn't good enough to win the game. If playing Brig can allow the rest of my team to survive their own misplays, then perhaps that is going to cause them to stop whining. Whatever the case may be, the attackers were coming to this round with a healthy dose of confidence, and that rightfully so. It didn't take us long at all to realize that holding high ground isn't gonna get us far with our composition, and to make matters worse, the enemy Widowmaker deleted our Echo in an instant, leaving us to fight at a disadvantage. By some grace of Jeff, we managed to hold our ground at the choke point, with the enemy team being unsure how they are supposed to approach this fight when just walking into us is no longer an option. Something the enemy Doomfist would also learn very quickly as he found himself utterly countered. But the blue team were a tricky bunch. Their Widowmaker went for a big flank and took her time to line up a shot in order to create the advantage her team needed. A barrage of body shots would eventually grab our attention, but at that moment, I just had to trust my team that they would be able to handle it while we tried to secure the front line. It wasn't exactly ideal to have my Tracer as well as my Hammond chase after a low HP Widowmaker, but hey, they got her at the end of the day, so at least there's that. Playing Brigitte allowed me to allocate more brain capacity to shot calling when otherwise I would have had to dedicate that to actually playing the game. The enemy Widowmaker's flank, while not inherently successful, did create an opening for the attackers that they just barely failed to make use of. We were on thin ice here. A single slip-up could mean losing the points. Yeah, okay, so we slipped up and lost the point. Listen, everything was going fine until the enemies used one too many ultimates with us not having a good response for it. But even more importantly than that, my team's mental state was deteriorating at a breakneck pace. As we backed out, I noticed that one of our DPS had swapped to a Bastion, which I couldn't justify that pick under any logical circumstance, even if I tried. Half of the enemy team was going for a massive flank off on our opposite side, and when my Hammond called that out, I started to light up our voice chat. We had a clear man advantage fighting for the card right now, meaning I tried to gather my team to take the fight on the payload. We may have lost our scouting Hammond, but the fight for the objective was going exactly as planned, smashing the attackers into the ground while the rest of their team tried to set up a play. At that point, the next step was simple. Stay on the card and welcome the flankers with open arms to decimate them in similar fashion. Unfortunately, my Bastion disagreed with that idea and much preferred going off on his own to then die to set flankers. What was supposed to be an easy teamfight for us to win was now turned into a bit of a hassle with a very real possibility of us losing the entire game. Considering my team's poor coordination and target priority, I made it my job to shout hero names into voice chat in hopes of them finally acting like a unit. It was clear to me that I wanted to play much more aggressively than the rest of my team, which is odd because playing aggressively is what won us the first point, and it is also how we succeeded defending the first time around. Until we didn't. Speaking of which, the enemy team had banked enough ultimates to win 5 teamfights over, and my teammates' questionable positioning would once again be their downfall. My team got absolutely annihilated while I was dueling the enemy Genji, and what followed was an excruciatingly long period in which I was attempting to guard the body for res, as it slowly but surely dawned on me that the reason nobody was listening to my calls was because everyone was dead. In an act of sheer desperation, I used my ultimate to... I don't even know what I was trying to do. I was completely lost at that point and just hit Q in panic, which of course only had me waste an ability that could have helped us stabilize in the next teamfight. A teamfight that I wasn't even sure if we're still gonna get, considering the fact that the enemy Roadhog just went on a tear via means of flanking. To make matters worse, he tried to spawn camp our support line as well, and needless to say that my Baptiste was more desperate for help than YouTubers are desperate for you to hit the like button. Ultimately, the enemy team was approaching their final destination, and all I could do is watch my teammates get decimated as they waste ultimate abilities in the same way I did.
Touch point. It's not happening.
You can hear the desperation in my voice. There was no way I could survive the combined forces of the enemy team if I was to just go out to touch the card. To be entirely honest with you guys, I had already surrendered to the idea that this game was over. But one person who hadn't given up yet was my Hammond. He rolled out towards the objective with a fire in his heart that was meant to reignite our hopes. The enemy team was less than a meter away from finishing this game off when he finally managed to stop them, and it was in this moment that we saw an opportunity to stay in the game. Bastion and I were attacking from different angles, picking off targets one by one instead of trying to assault the objective head-on, and our tricky maneuver would prove to be successful. This play came so out of nowhere that the attacking Echo was flustered enough to waste an ultimate, one which would have no impact whatsoever, and with only about a minute left on the clock, they would definitely want that one refunded. Desperation was in the air now, but this time, it would be the attackers who are struggling. As much as it felt like they already had this one in the bag, our team pulled out every last energy reserve we had to make our last stands mere meters away where we failed the first time around. Our McCree in particular was having the final fight of his life. Every bullet was being fired with conviction in order to not only keep us in the game, but deliver the victory that most of us believed to be out of reach. And before we knew it, the clock read overtime. Press one. Lucio. Doom. Ball. Just a monkey. Good job, holy crap. Dude, Josh, that carry. What an absolutely insane comeback from the brink of annihilation. Man, I know that my McCree absolutely popped off at the end there, but wasn't it for my Hammond touching the point when I thought us already defeated? We wouldn't even have had a chance to fight. And with that Herculean effort behind us, it was only fitting to be granted a promotion. Okay, fine, that wasn't actually my promotion match. I got Masters off of a game on Lijiang Tower that we stomped so unbelievably quickly that I forgot to record the second half of it. I mean, I thought I hit the record button, but I guess I must have forgotten. Either way, I went completely undefeated following my first 2 placement games and skyrocketed all the way from 3200 back into Masters. And honestly, it was kind of fun. I understand that because I didn't lose any of my games, I was less likely to run into toxic players complaining all the time. But regardless of that, I made a lot of positive memories with a lot of really fun people. Also, I know that YouTubers always ask for you to click the like button, but genuinely, if you want to see more competitive play on the channel, do drop me a like and leave a comment down below. I will admit that with the current shift towards double barrier, I'm not exactly looking forward to playing more ranked until they change it, but still, if an overwhelming majority of people really want to see competitive play despite the story pacing issues, I'll at least give it a try. With that said, thank you everybody so much for watching, make sure you are subscribed to not miss out on the next episode, and definitely hit that bell icon so that you get notified. I hope you guys have a fantastic day, and until next time, peace.